Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are across this great wide world of ours. Today I know, continue to drink some fluid here because I got a very dry throat. I want to talk about this continuization on the BIA, or what I call the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And from this point forward, I'll say BIA. But the case I want to talk about is this historical trauma that had existed with some of these tribes for many centuries, for many decades, I should say, and also many centuries. We can go all the way back to the King Philip's War, the 16th, 14th, 15th, 16th century, when Europeans settled on in New England and was forcing native people off the lands and more eastward. And what this caused is this historical drama or this mistrust in white European settlement. Further, what this has caused is it has caused a mistrust around the political leadership that exists in the United States today with indigenous people and that are located in North America, predominantly in the lower 48 states. But this mistrust also can go into, if we look into the Spanish-American War, for instance, with Cuba and also with the Philippines, and with Hawaii, this mistrust or this misunderstanding of the white elites that created the colonization, but also this colonization that existed, and I call this colonization of forcing Native Americans on remote lands, predominantly west of the Mississippi River. I remember a lot of these lands started with the Indian Removal Act by Andrew Jackson in the 1830s, and consequently the formation of the Bureau of Indian Affairs in the 1830s around March 11th. And consequently, where this leads is that instead of being under the Interior Department in the beginning, the reservations were under the branch of the Secretary of the War. In other words, they were under the leadership of the War Department, and not necessarily a case of different identity within the United States. So what occurred out of this, folks, is that there's this drama or historical traumatic mistrust that exists with a lot of tribes, and I can take this into account myself, with that sometimes it's very difficult for a tribe or even a reservation, if you're looking at doing information about that tribe, to get information, because they're wondering what you're going to do with that information, because they don't want that publicized without their consent. And number two, there's this mistrust in the white elites, predominantly the people of power. And it comes a case that, like I said, with me as being having a PhD in psychology, and I look for information that I will be able to work on getting things completed. And this is part of the issue that I think needs to be addressed by the BIA. I think sometimes they think they have the answer to this, and in actuality, there still is this mistrust with the BIA among maybe not necessarily the tribal leaders within tribes, predominantly a lot of tribes that are isolated out west, but even tribes to the east, is the individual members of those tribes where they distrust uh, American people or the elites or the industrial, what I call the industrial complex. And we can see this especially right now with the election coming up this fall in 2024. Because I think this is an issue that needs to be looked at, but then we're looking into issues of um, the economy and other issues. Sending money to Ukraine, well, we can use that money elsewhere. And I'm a big component that we need to clean up our house before we can clean up somebody else's house. And then we got so many issues that I think we need to look at addressing those issues, especially when we're considering the issues of BIA, because I think there's a lot, in my belief, there's a lot of bureaucracy within the BIA. And what comes out, excuse me, is there's not enough. Like any nonprofit organization, there's a lot of upper weight and upper employees, and little of that emphasis gets down to the people who need it the most. So, what in essence happens, and like I said, is there's when we're talking about this, and I wrote a book about our water quality on the reservations, is that there's really limited plumbing, but there again, my big issue is we're willing to send F-16s, tanks, and etc. to Ukraine when we have issues of water quality and isolation with issues on the reservations itself. And even though a lot of people would probably say, well, that's the way it's been, it's not necessarily the case, or it's always been that way. Well, that's not necessarily the case either, in that, we need to always reform and revisit the area. One thing that I'm really thinking about doing is chronicling when the time came with the Interior Department, when the Interior Department gets the Bureau of Indian Affairs, is looking at the directors of those and see how much impact each of those directors had upon the reservations. My guess is there maybe Harold Ickes under FDR, and I haven't looked at lately the ones that are within the is what impact or what changes have they made to the BIA to create a more positive influence. But that's something I'm looking at doing. Is one of my books, but then like I said, it's a research, and I'm working on one book right now called Abundance. And once I get that book worked on, which I will do this week, then I will start looking at the Interior departments and seeing what impact if all what they did. And like I said, when you're dealing with people, they're going to bring in their own strengths and their own weaknesses. And like I said, I think we're at that point right now that we're going well into the late into the 21st, beginning part of the 22nd century, and I think this is a good time to make an impact in changing the structure of the BIA to where the Native Americans give a better influence and a better uh, impact rather than having those costs on the bureaucracy. And we all know that when you involve government into a program, chances are they will slow the process down or they will mess up the project. So, and I'm a big component or a big belief that the individual leadership within each tribe should have the impact in empowering more people on the reservation themselves, and just hand out money. And I'm not a big believer in just handing out money. We can see that now with people who are on SSDI, and a lot of, I'm not knocking that. It's just that we come to a point that if the whole government would collapse, these people would have to come up with a resource to get uh, to get revenue. And I'm not saying the government would collapse, but I'm just saying we need to look at doing this with the reservations themselves, to where they develop. In the gambling, gambling is not the solution. I believe right now, I wrote a book on that. Uh, uh, Casinos and the diminishing return for Native American tribes. I believe that as the boomers die out, there's not this big need for the use of gambling. And so a lot of these places that have these big casinos will probably go empty. And there again, we will have blight on these casinos on certain places. And so there again, that's an issue that I think the BIA needs to address. But like I said, I read under the Biden administration, they wanted to bring in more casinos. And bringing in more casinos is not the solution. And I think that the solution is condensing up the the districts, and also condensing up these casinos, because I really don't think it's really, gambling is a poor man's game. It's for people that don't know how to value money and get rich scheme. And most of the people that do win at these end up being broke by the time within 5 to 7 years. So here again, it goes back to what I've said: empowering the tribes into education, social services, and giving those the chance, instead of sending F-16s and tanks to Ukraine, where that money would be better used in existing, coming up with infrastructure in many of these reservations for clean water sources, especially for plumbing. Anyway, these are some food for thought today. Please like and subscribe to my channel, Native American Reservations. Feel free to comment at bthomasmillerpsych@gmail.com. And like I said, a lot of people have reached out to me about this. And a lot of my research and a lot of my readings have focused on Native American and Native American culture. My dissertation was on Native American culture as well. So anyway, please feel free to reach out to me, and have a great week. Talk to you real soon.